recognize Representative Turner.
Thank you, Chairman. Are there any candidates excluded from running for office in the current system?
I'm sorry?
Are there any candidates excluded from running for office under the current system? Are we preventing somebody from having an opportunity to put their name on the ballot before this change will become effective?
Well, I think what you're asking me is to interpret what the law says now.
I mean,
I would need a lot of time to research that before I could give you an answer. Legislative counsel may be able to.
Okay. Are any voters prevented from voting for their preferred candidate in the current system?
Well, likewise, I'm not sure that I would not be able to go through the entire elections code section to be able to answer what you're asking me. Maybe a question for somebody else.
Isn't it true that if somebody wants to challenge a sitting incumbent in this special election process that we have today, that there's nothing preventing them from putting their name on the ballot?
I'm sure the gentleman knows of what he speaks.
And therefore, isn't it true that any voter can vote for their preferred candidate under the current system?
I don't see anything wrong with what you're saying, or no, sir.
Okay. Yesterday, the Speaker issued a statement about this piece of legislation saying the underlying principle of this legislation is a fair, comparable playing field for all those seeking elected office. Does this bill change the rules for all elections or just some?
Well, I think what we're trying to do with regards to this section of the bill is you have things that come up in it's not necessarily happens all the time. It's a unique circumstance, and so yes, this would capture just very unique circumstances. And again, it is designed such that we would avoid any additional cost to the taxpayer. And so it is carved in a special way, and that's the intent. And we are most absolutely certain to have an additional cost with a runoff if we do have a jungle or melee primaries versus a normal primary. Now, we are laying this over the top of a general primary that each and every one of us have to operate in, and that's the way this would operate with certain offices.
So isn't it true that you and I both share this trait in common, that we were elected in special elections?
Yes, sir.
And isn't it true that you were elected during a special election outside of session and I was elected during session?
Well, I'm not, I know about my own.
So does this bill affect us? Would it have affected us had it been in place? Would we have faced a primary special election prior to our own special election?
I think that's a fair discussion. I think that's certainly a bill that I would recommend that you entertain, and I think that's worthy of putting forward. Yes, sir.
But I don't like this bill. Why would I do that?
Well, I think it's good policy. Once again, I think that it is good policy to give the parties who are an integral part of the election process an opportunity to weigh in a primary when the situation is available to them.
So if you would indulge me, line 138, such partisan office is being filled on, these are the conditions for this bill to take effect. So maybe I'm answering my own question here about whether or not this is affecting all elections or just some. This is very specific language. Such partisan office is being filled on a temporary basis by appointment. So isn't it true that this wouldn't affect all elections?
I never intimated that it would.
Okay, I just want to be very clear because I didn't hear a clear answer there. So I just want to be very clear, so it's on the record. When the speaker says that the underlying principle of this legislation is fair, comparable playing field for all those seeking elected office, that's simply not the case. It's factually not true that this affects all elections. It doesn't affect state representatives like us. It doesn't affect any other office except for those that would be a vacancy appointed by the governor. Is that correct?
I think it would be all elections, and then, of course, certain special elections under certain circumstances.
If that's the case, what is the need for line 138?
I think when you're talking about appointments, Mr. Representative, that you're talking about an opportunity that an appointment where you have not given the voters an opportunity to weigh in. And so I think that's what that line speaks to. And it does use the term partisan, so yes, in a partisan situation. So you wouldn't run a primary in the event that you did not have a partisan election.
So, but appointments in this case, specifically, because this is aiming for just one type of the U.S. Senate race, and we're trying to get this done before the fall election. In that particular case, the voters do have, isn't it true that voters do have an opportunity to go to the ballot and cast their vote in November?
I think that we are still very early on in the process. So again, qualifying has not even been set. I would submit to you that based on that fact that we have an opportunity to align this with all the other elections that are going on this year. I would prefer to speak to policy. I mean, I think, again, we had this conversation yesterday. You can choose what prism you want to look at this through, whether it be personality or politics. But if you look at this from a strictly a policy standpoint, is this good policy? Is it going to affect the taxpayer? Or are we just going to add a line on the ballot? And the ink costs to do that. So we're already running elections. We're already having them this year. I think this speaks to that. And so I best answer I can give you, sir.
Thank you for letting me subject you to my line of questioning. First and foremost, I always appreciate your professionalism. I just continue to have concerns around the motivations for this. And I disagree with you, frankly, about the race already being underway. That firing pistols was fired many months ago when the outgoing senator decided to resign, and we wish him well and thank him for his service. But that's when the race started for this particular spot. And for us to change the rules in the middle of the race is an interesting thing that I think has to be examined through a political lens. I don't think we have a choice there. And the policy might be a good one if it weren't being done in the middle of a race that had already kicked off.
You're correct. We disagree on that.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, the middle would, I would say, I don't know how we could consider anything middle when we don't even have a qualifying date set. But yes, sir. Thank you.